So with this review, I should say right now, A, I have never seen this movie, and B, I know that Illumination Entertainment is making their own Mario Brothers movie in a couple of years, but considering that Mario's biggest rival back in the 90s has his own movie out this weekend, I thought it'd be appropriate to give the plumber and his misunderstood brother some time to shine. Or maybe that's the wrong choice of words considering what this movie is about. Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson, and this is my review for the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which came out in 1993 and is based on the well-beloved Nintendo games. If I were to describe the plot to this movie in the most simple way possible, it would be Mario and Luigi have to save Princess Daisy from King Koopa. It sounds like the game, except for the fact that you swapped Peach with Daisy. But what if I were to tell you that the movie also involved the extinction of the dinosaurs and a parallel universe where the dinosaurs lived in another dimension and evolved into humans, and that the Mario Brothers are actually plumbers, they're not actually brothers, and they're played by a British actor and a Latino actor. Yeah, that doesn't sound like this game series at all. So I don't consider myself much of a gamer, but when it comes to a lot of Nintendo stuff, I like Nintendo. I've played all of the main Mario Brothers games. I can't recall a time I've ever beaten one of the games, maybe Super Mario 64, but those games are a ton of fun, they're iconic, great music, fun characters, but man, they frustrate me sometimes with how difficult they can be. So I'd been a fan of this video game series as a kid, and I've always heard about this movie. It was some weird time capsule of the 90s that when people mentioned it, you go, oh yeah, that was a thing that happened, but I just never saw it. Because of the condition of video game movies, I just didn't bother to see the Super Mario Bros. Movie. And having seen this for the first time, there's a damn good reason why I kind of put this off. If you ever want to pinpoint the source of why we don't have any good video game movies, it's the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Because it was the first adaptation of a well-established video game series. It predates Jean-Claude Van Damme's Street Fighter, it predates Paul W.S. Anderson's Mortal Kombat, it predates the Resident Evil series, and given that this movie has literally nothing to do with the video games, I feel like that it's just been a curse for why we just don't get any good ones. This movie has definitely gained a cult following, and everyone's talked about this movie to oblivion, so the only thing I really have to offer is my own personal experience from watching it for the first time. And as my first impression, this movie is terrible. It's absolutely atrocious, but it's a beautifully atrocious movie. I cannot lie when I say that this movie entertained me from beginning to end, but for all the wrong reasons. I could not stop watching it because I'm like, man, this movie is going out of its way to distance itself from the video games and be nothing like them, so I just gotta see what crazy shit it's gonna do. And it did not disappoint in the slightest. Let's talk about how this is so different from the video game. The movie opens up with a prologue detailing the extinction of the dinosaurs, featuring possibly the worst 2D animation that you have ever seen in a movie. You know those really bizarre cutscenes in the Zelda CDI games? That's what this prologue is right here. And it details that when the meteor struck the Earth, rather than wiping out the dinosaurs, it instead created a parallel dimension where the dinosaurs were able to evolve and turn into humans and even create their own city. And then when we cut to modern-day Brooklyn, we see that both Mario and Luigi are plumbers. So I just find it hilarious that out of all the games where they do anything but plumbing, the movie just makes them plumbers right off the bat. But you have the problem in the sense that they're two Italian brothers, or at least they're supposed to be, and you have Bob Hoskins as Mario, who is a British actor, but he's doing his Brooklyn accent, almost like he just stepped off the Roger Rabbit set, even though this movie came out in 93, and Roger Rabbit came out in 88. And then you have John Leguizamo, who is Latino, and this movie establishes that they are not brothers, because there's a dinner scene where Luigi and Daisy are on a double date with Mario and some other girl. Daisy talks about how she was abandoned in the most nonchalant way possible, like she just doesn't look at it as a big deal or some tragic event. And then Luigi asks, "You don't know who your mother and father were either?" And that indicates right there that Luigi was an orphan and Mario brought him in. and adopted him pretty much. I mean, I had a hard time believing that they were brothers to begin with, just based on the fact that neither of these actors are Italian. But that being said, you make the Mario brothers not brothers. And then to make things even more confusing, we're introduced to the concept that Mario and Luigi's last name is Mario. So Mario and Luigi Mario. I don't think that's anything that we needed to know as fans. It's just like in Rob Zombie's Halloween, where we didn't need to see how Michael Myers got his mask, or in Solo, where we didn't need to know how Han got his last name, or how he got his DL-44. It's just really stupid. And as for the other characters, Daisy is still a princess, but she's a paleontologist this time around, and she has blonde hair, even though Daisy always had brown hair. I don't want to do in the games they do this, in the movie they do this type of criticism, but because this movie just goes, again, so far out of its way to be nothing like the games, I can't help myself. And then you have some other characters from the game that appear in this movie in name only. For example, Iggy, one of the Koopa kids, is just some dumb henchman. Toad is just some random hippie civilian in Dino Hatton, which is the parallel dimension city beneath Manhattan. Big Bertha, who is just a fish in the games, is this sassy black woman. Yoshi is just a generic Tyrannosaurus Rex, which, I mean, I guess in the sense that Yoshi is still a dinosaur, they got that right, but it still has nothing to do with the game. And then the Goombas literally look nothing like their video game counterparts. This movie, when you get right down to it, has just as much to do with the Mario Brothers games as Roland Emmerich's Godzilla has to do with the actual Godzilla. Which, by the way, while doing my research, I found out that the same creature designer that designed Zilla, Patrick Tatopoulos, was responsible for designing the Goombas in this movie. I don't even know how to process that, but it makes the radical changes to Roland Emmerich's Godzilla make a hell of a lot more sense, because this guy worked on the Super Mario Brothers movie. And then you get to Dennis Hopper as King Koopa, who looks nothing like Bowser in the games. He's not a dragon turtle, he's just a businessman who descended from a T-Rex. And I have to say that I don't think Dennis Hopper could overact even if he tried. Like, he is chewing up scenery in this movie. He is ridiculously over the top. He enunciates his words to a comedic degree. He is hilarious in the movie. He is one of the things that keeps this movie from being unwatchable. I mean, there's several moments, from the terrible special effects to the overall randomness of the movie. Like, it is just an absolutely fascinating movie to watch, and Dennis Hopper definitely enhances the viewing experience. He is the most entertaining actor in this movie, especially when you bring up Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo as Mario and Luigi, respectively. The two of them just don't really try that much, and I've seen both of them be great actors, especially Bob Hoskins. But with this movie, it just feels like he and Alan Silvestri were told that they were going to be doing the sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because the score sounds very similar to Roger Rabbit, and the fact that Bob Hoskins plays Mario just like Eddie Valiant in Roger Rabbit, it's mind-blowing. Like, it is literally mind-blowing how much this movie deviates from the series. And I know that's been the bulk of this review, comparing the movie to the game. And I really am under the assumption that, look, you can make any changes you want as long as you respect the source material. And there's some familiarity, like when we watch this movie, we want it to feel like the video games. Like when we watch the Dark Knight trilogy, those make a lot of changes from the Batman lore, but it still feels like Batman. But with this movie, not only does it look nothing like the games, but it just doesn't have the same spirit. And the tone is just all over the place. You don't know if it's trying to be a kid's movie at points, but there's really edgy adult humor here that makes you question whether it's for kids or not. Like, it's baffling. I would love to be a fly on the wall during the production meetings and just listen in to how these decisions were made. How did the meetings go when it was decided, you know what, these games are pretty cool, so we're gonna make a movie that's literally nothing like the games? I want to be in that meeting right there and see what happened. I tried my damnedest to try to think of something that I legitimately liked. Something I thought was legitimately good, and not a backhanded compliment. And I can't think of a single thing that's good about this movie at all. But I'm never mad. This movie is just so entertaining from beginning to end, just in terms of how nuts it is. There's always something happening on the screen, whether it's the cars that spew endless amounts of sparks, the very dated special effects, the weird sequence where Mario and Luigi are teleported from Manhattan to Dino Hatton in a very psychedelic Doctor Strange type scenario that made me go, what is happening right now as I was watching it? And there's just a charm to this movie in the sense that they really did go out of their way to make this nothing like the games. And in that sense, I almost got to applaud the movie for doing that, because we get a lot of video game movies out there that try to be like the source material, like Hitman or Assassin's Creed, and yet they're just not good movies, and they're boring. This movie is never boring because you're always wondering, what's going to happen next? I cannot turn this movie off, no matter how terrible it is. I have to see what they're going to do next. So, in that sense, I mean, it's a terrible movie when you get right down to it, but I'm going to say watch at your own risk. If you go into this movie expecting it to be terrible, expecting it to be nothing like the video games, but you just want to see an off-the-wall, bonkers movie that's just Mario Brothers in name only, then I don't think you're going to be disappointed. And also, it's short. It's less than 2 hours, it moves at a great pace, so you're never bored, you never have the urge to turn it off. Even if you are downright confused and just lost in what's happening, it's never boring. So if you go into this movie with that mindset, then I think you might have a good time. Just make sure to bring in that right amount of beer, wine, or pot, you should be good. And there you go, that's my review for the Super Mario Bros. Movie. In a couple days, we've got the Sonic the Hedgehog movie coming out, so I'll be curious to see how far we've come in between two of the most iconic video game characters of all time and their movie adaptations. So I'm curious to see how the Sonic movie plays out, but first I want to know what you guys think about the Super Mario Bros. Movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, leave a comment, support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the Real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one.